Well, as Canada's premiers continue to grow impatient over U.S. tariffs and stalled trade talks, Chair of the Council of the Federation and P.E.I. Premier Rob Lantz was here in Ottawa. He met today one-on-one with Prime Minister Mark Carney.
As Chair of COF, I'd like to talk about, of course, your budget that you'll introduce tomorrow, Canada-U.S. relations, maybe an update on that, and perhaps an opportunity to maybe find a spot for a First Minister's meeting.
Perhaps we can certainly, with all of the above, we're going to knock all that off. It's going to be the most amazing 30 minutes ever.
Rob Lantz is a Premier of Prince Edward Island and the Chair of the Council of the Federation. Premier Lantz, it's good to see you again. Thanks for coming in, sir.
Thanks, David. Nice to be here.
Going into your meeting there with the Prime Minister, you said you wanted to raise the idea of a First Minister's meeting with him because you're the host of it from the Premier side of it. Did you get an answer from Mark Carney on that?
Yeah, well, you know, first of all, I really appreciated the Prime Minister setting aside some time for me here today, and he's always been open and accessible, and he was again today. And yeah, it was one of the issues we discussed, a First Minister's meeting. We haven't had a good get-together since July up in Muskoka, and I think it'd just be a very good opportunity to get together, get an update on Canada-U.S. negotiations, among other things, but the Prime Minister is very open to that. I think we'll see something in the next 2 weeks. If it's not in person, then it will be virtual, but he was even open to the possibility of an in-person meeting.
Okay, a meeting within the next 2 weeks or a date of a meeting within the next 2 weeks?
I think we'll see something arranged, a meeting within the next couple of weeks is the way I read the room, but I could be wrong, but I think the urgency's there. It's time to get Team Canada back together. Just open those lines of communication, make sure we know where we stand on a number of issues, the Canada-U.S. relationship being prime among those. But that unity is very much appreciated by Canadians. I know that firsthand. I relayed that to the Prime Minister. I'm sure he knows that well as well. But Canadians really appreciated the way the premiers and the federal government have been working together, and I want to see that continue.
Okay, I want to explore that in just a second, but we also know that the Prime Minister has talked about getting everybody together at the Grey Cup on November 16th in Manitoba. Now, that has more to do with major projects. Would that be the First Minister's meeting, or is this something specific in addition to the promised Grey Cup gathering?
I didn't get that invitation, but I'd be happy to meet with the Prime Minister and the other premiers of the Grey Cup. But regardless where it happens, again, I think it's important that we get together and just open the lines of communication so that everybody knows the state of play.
Okay, on the unity front, I mean, it was very clear. I saw you last in Huntsville, in Muskoka, where everyone was pretty well on board. Since then, though, there's been some developments, right? Like talks are now off. There was a bit of a back and forth between the Prime Minister and the Premier of Ontario over the ad and whether this triggered the end in talks, and some frustration from other premiers on not knowing exactly the full state of play and where things are with the United States. I mean, as the chair of the Council of the Federation, are you worried now about some of that unity we saw earlier in the year fraying a bit?
I'm not worried. I've spoken to many of the premiers in recent days and weeks. There's going to be ups and downs through this process. It's very complicated. There's a lot on the line. You know, certain premiers have a lot more at stake than others here. We're not, you know, in the middle of some of these sectoral issues in Prince Edward Island, but, you know, the auto industry is in the crosshairs in Ontario. I can understand that. Premiers have priorities and concerns of their own, but I think generally we can regroup and get back on the same page, and we all understand the importance of that.
You spoke to the Prime Minister the day before the federal budget, which we know is going to have a pretty large deficit, but also a pretty heavy focus on economic growth and diversification and sort of, well, resilience, quite frankly, in the face of what the U.S. is doing. Do you have a sense of where this budget is going to go tomorrow after meeting with the Prime Minister, and is there a direction that you're keen to see as the Premier of Prince Edward Island and the Chair of the Council?
Well, I did get a bit of a sense of where we're going, but I think they've done a pretty good job of telegraphing that publicly, as they normally do as we get closer and closer and set the expectations. But I did point out to the Prime Minister, it's very, it's surprising how similar the federal situation is to provincial situation in many cases, being Prince Edward Island and I'm sure in other provinces. We're coming through a period now where economic growth of this country is absolutely imperative to maintain all of our spending that we do and social programs. That's all enabled by economic growth, and that growth is somewhat under threat from the situation we're in, and we're all focused on ways to keep that train rolling. In Prince Edward Island, we've had nation-leading economic growth over a number of years now, and we're up against a number of things. First of all, the trade file, but you know, I raised with the Prime Minister the energy file. We're very much bumping up against the limits of our accessibility to reliable energy in Prince Edward Island, and that's part of our nation-building project that we put forward, the Eastern Energy Partnership, and there was a lot of discussion about that today. So there's a lot on the table. But economic growth is a big focus of both federal government and provincial governments.
Well, just on energy, I had a great family vacation in Prince Edward Island in August, but I noticed the sheer number of solar panels on people's houses, and you realize, oh, also a guy from an island, but with big energy sources on the island of Newfoundland, that's not the way it is in Prince Edward Island. So the pitch has been to really connect more into the mainland grid. Do you get a sense of whether you're going to get an answer on that by the Grey Cup list that we're hearing about, or could it take a bit longer?
Well, I'm not sure what kind of timeline we're looking at. We still have some work to do on designing our energy network in the Atlantic region, but you know, Prince Edward Island is a cul-de-sac on the transmission network in Atlantic Canada, and we're supplied by undersea cables. Some of those are coming near end of life. We've got a bottleneck in New Brunswick that provides transmission to Prince Edward Island. But as you said, yes, we've invested a lot of money in electrification in Prince Edward Island. Our energy use is climbing through, you know, to meet some of our net zero goals by the installation of heat pumps, but solar panels are rebate programs for solar panels. We're still investing in wind energy in Prince Edward Island. As you said, there's windmills, and there's a proponent for a new wind farm in Prince Edward Island that almost double our wind generation capacity, but as you know, the wind doesn't always blow. We need redundancy. We need more than a single point of failure to the mainland. Right. There's a lot of issues at play in energy, and it will be a limiting factor for us to continue the strong economic growth path we've been on, so we need to address it. And the Prime Minister recognized that. So
just as a final question, Premier, I mean, you take the residential power off the base load a bit with, you know, personal solar panels and things like this to power your home, which helps with peak demand and other things, but it's industrial growth you need this extra link for.
Absolutely, and I can't be certain that our electric utility has been factoring in all of the growth factors. You know, population growth has been a factor in Prince Edward Island, but our industrial growth base is very electric heavy. And I've spoken to some businesses, some companies in manufacturing that have opportunities to expand significantly, but the energy reliability is a factor. And I can't stress enough that energy could be a limiting factor for us to continue the growth path we're on economically, so it needs to be addressed.
Rob Lantz, Premier of Prince Edward Island and Chair of the Council of the Federation. It's good to see you, sir.
Thanks very much, David.